A drug in your drink, the maid whispered, and the billionaire's fiancé got exposed. I remember the exact weight of happiness. It settles in your chest like warm honey, slow and golden, spreading through every hollow space grief once carved out of you. That night, the night of our engagement gala, I carried that weight like a man who'd finally learned to breathe again after years of drowning. The Hawthorne estate glittered like a living thing. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across 400 guests, each one dressed in enough designer fabric to fund a small nation. Champagne towers caught the glow and scattered it like liquid diamonds. An orchestra played something soft and romantic, the kind of music that makes people sway unconsciously toward each other. And there she was. Lyra Vale. My fiancée stood across the ballroom in a gown of midnight blue that seemed to have been spun from the night sky itself. Her dark hair cascaded over bare shoulders, and when she smiled at something my sister said, I swear the chandeliers dimmed in jealousy. I was 34 years old. I had built an empire from the ashes of my father's gambling debts. I had graced the covers of Forbes and Time. I had shaken hands with presidents and dined with royalty. But watching Lyra laugh? That was the only moment I'd ever felt rich. You're staring again. My best friend and CFO, Daniel Chen, appeared at my elbow with 2 glasses of scotch. It's getting embarrassing, Elias. You look like a teenager at prom. I took the glass without looking away from her. I spent 5 years forgetting how to feel anything. Let me stare. Daniel's expression softened. He knew. Everyone in my inner circle knew about the darkness I'd crawled through, the years I'd lost to grief so consuming it had nearly swallowed me whole. She's good for you, he said quietly. I've never seen you like this. Like what? Alive. The word hit me harder than it should have. Because he was right. Before Lyra, I had been a ghost wearing expensive suits. I attended galas and board meetings and charity functions, but I was never present. I was always somewhere else, somewhere cold and dark, replaying memories I couldn't escape. Then she walked into my life 8 months ago, and everything changed. I finished my scotch and set the empty glass on a passing waiter's tray. I'm going to dance with my fiancé. Of course you are. I wove through the crowd, accepting congratulations with practiced smiles, but my eyes never left her. Lyra saw me coming and her expression transformed, that particular softening she reserved only for me, as if my presence both wounded and healed her simultaneously. Mr. Hawthorne. She extended her hand with mock formality. I was beginning to think you'd forgotten about me. Impossible. I took her hand and pressed my lips to her knuckles. I couldn't forget you if I tried. Something flickered in her eyes then, a shadow so brief I almost missed it. But I did notice. I always noticed the darkness that lurked behind her light. Dance with me, I said. It wasn't a question. She melted into my arms as the orchestra shifted to a waltz. We moved together the way we always did, seamlessly, as if we'd been designed to fit against each other. Her head rested against my shoulder, and I could smell the jasmine in her hair, feel the slight tremor in her fingers. You're shaking, I murmured. I'm happy. Lyra. I'm happy, Elias. She pulled back enough to meet my eyes, and the intensity in her gaze stole my breath. I didn't know it was possible to feel this much. Sometimes it scares me. I cupped her face with one hand, my thumb tracing the delicate line of her cheekbone. You never have to be scared with me. I've got you. I'll always have you. Her smile trembled. Promise? I promise. She rose on her tiptoes and kissed me, soft and sweet and tasting like champagne. The guests around us erupted in applause and cheerful whoops. I heard Daniel whistling somewhere in the crowd. My sister was probably crying into her husband's shoulder. This was it. This was the happy ending I'd stopped believing in. This was the last perfect moment of my life. The champagne toast came 45 minutes later. 400 guests gathered in the main hall as my sister took the microphone, her eyes glistening with happy tears. I stood beside Lyra, our fingers intertwined, as Emma launched into a speech about love and second chances and the brother she'd thought she'd lost to grief. To Elias and Lyra, Emma raised her glass. May your love story be the one that finally proves fairy tales are real. I reached for my champagne flute, the one that had been placed specifically at my spot, waiting for this exact moment. A hand caught my wrist. I turned, startled, and found myself staring at a young woman in a maid's uniform. Her face was pale, almost grey, and her eyes were wild with fear. I recognized her vaguely, one of the new staff members, perhaps. Maria? Marina? Sir, she whispered, her voice cracking. Sir, please, don't drink that. The ballroom noise faded to a distant hum. I was suddenly aware of how hard her grip was, how violently her hand trembled. What? She leaned closer, and her next words destroyed my universe. A drug in your drink. Miss Vale put it there. Time stopped. I heard the words. I understood their individual meanings. But my brain refused to assemble them into anything coherent because that wasn't possible. That was insane. Lyra loved me. Lyra was going to marry me. Lyra was. I looked at her. And her face told me everything. The color had drained from her cheeks like water from a shattered glass. Her lips parted, but no sound emerged. Her eyes, those beautiful, haunted eyes I'd fallen into 8 months ago, filled with tears that spilled over before she could blink them back. Elias, she breathed. Elias, please. What did you do? My voice didn't sound like mine. It was hollow. Dead. The voice of a man watching his resurrection crumble into ash. The maid's whisper had traveled. People were turning, murmuring, pulling out phones. The orchestra had stopped playing. For 100 pairs of eyes fixed on us with the hungry attention of an audience witnessing a car crash in slow motion. What did you do? Lyra flinched like I'd struck her. Tears streamed down her face now, ruining her makeup, destroying the perfect picture she'd painted. I was trying to protect you, she sobbed. I was trying to save you. By drugging me. By making you forget. The word echoed through the ballroom. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Someone dropped a champagne glass, and it shattered against the marble floor like an exclamation point. I don't understand. I was shaking now too, my whole body vibrating with a combination of rage and disbelief and something that felt terrifyingly like fear. Make me understand, Lyra. Make me understand why the woman I love, the woman I was going to marry, just tried to drug me at our engagement party. She crumpled. Not metaphorically. Literally. Her knees gave out, and she collapsed onto the ballroom floor in a pool of midnight blue fabric, her body racked with sobs so violent they seemed to tear her apart. I'm dying, she wept. Elias, I'm dying, and I couldn't. The world tilted. I heard my sister cry out. I heard Daniel shouting for a doctor. I heard the frantic clicking of phone cameras and the excited whispers of guests who had come expecting a fairy tale and stumbled into a tragedy instead. But I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I could only stand there, champagne flute still clutched in my frozen hand, staring at the woman I loved as she shattered into pieces on the ballroom floor. I'm dying. No. No, no, no. Not again. To understand why those two words, I'm dying, didn't just break my heart but annihilated it entirely, you need to understand what came before Lyra. You need to understand Sophia. I was 25 when I married her. Young, stupid, drunk on love and ambition in equal measure. Sophia was a painter, brilliant and chaotic and so full of life it seemed impossible that death would ever dare touch her. We had 3 years. 3 years of paint-stained kisses and arguments about whose turn it was to do dishes. 3 years of lazy Sundays and midnight conversations and planning a future we assumed we had the right to. Then she started getting headaches. Then she started forgetting things, small things at first, then bigger things, then my name. The tumor was inoperable. Aggressive. A monster wearing the disguise of medical terminology, destroying her from the inside out while I watched helplessly. She died on a Tuesday afternoon, with winter sunlight streaming through hospital windows and my hand clutching hers so tightly I left bruises. I was 28 years old. And I stopped living. Oh, I kept breathing. Kept working. Kept accumulating wealth and power and influence as if those things could fill the void she'd left behind. But I wasn't alive. I was a husk. A performance of a person. I smiled when expected, laughed when required, and felt absolutely nothing. For 5 years, I felt nothing. My therapist said I was punishing myself. My sister said I was afraid. Daniel said I was running from the possibility of being hurt again. They were all right. I had decided, consciously, deliberately, that I would never love again. I would never give another person the power to destroy me the way Sophia's death had destroyed me. I would build my empire, attend my galas, live my hollow life, and die alone with my billions. It was a solid plan. Then I met Lyra. 8 months before the gala, I attended a charity auction for pediatric cancer research. I went because it looked good for the company. I bid on artwork I didn't care about. I networked with people I would forget by morning. And then I saw her. She was standing alone by the window, looking out at the city lights as if they held answers to questions she was afraid to ask. She wore a simple black dress, nothing designer, nothing flashy, and her dark hair was pulled back in a way that emphasized the sharp elegance of her cheekbones. She was beautiful. But that wasn't what stopped me. It was her eyes. When she turned and our gazes met across the crowded room, I saw something in her eyes that I recognized. A bone-deep weariness. A familiarity with darkness. The particular exhaustion of someone who has suffered profoundly and learned to hide it behind smiles. She looked like me. I walked toward her without deciding to. My feet simply moved, pulled by gravity I couldn't explain. "You look like you'd rather be anywhere else," I said. She startled, then smiled, a real smile, not the practiced curve I saw on the faces of everyone trying to impress me. Is it that obvious? Only to someone who feels the same way. Her laugh was soft and surprised. "You're Elias Hawthorne." "Unfortunately." "Why unfortunately?" I considered the question. No one ever asked me that. People assumed being Elias Hawthorne was a gift, a blessing, a privilege. Because, I said slowly, everyone in this room wants something from Elias Hawthorne. It would be nice, occasionally, to just be Elias. Her expression shifted, that softening I would come to crave like oxygen. "Hello, Elias," she said quietly. "I'm Lyra." We talked for 3 hours. We talked until the auction ended and the staff started cleaning up around us. We talked about nothing consequential, favorite books, terrible movies, cities we wanted to visit, but it felt like the most important conversation of my life. She didn't ask about my company. She didn't mention my net worth. She didn't flirt or simper or calculate how to position herself for my attention. She just saw me. When I asked for her number, she hesitated. Something flickered in her eyes, that shadow again, that darkness, and for a moment, I was certain she would refuse. "I'm not good at this," she said quietly. "Letting people in." "Neither am I." "I might hurt you." The words were strange, almost prophetic, but I was too captivated to care. "I'll take the risk." She gave me her number. I didn't know it then, but that was the moment everything changed. That was the moment I stepped off the cliff edge I'd been standing on for 5 years and let myself fall. Our courtship was slow. Careful. 2 wounded animals circling each other, wanting connection but afraid of the cost. Lyra was mysterious in ways that intrigued rather than frustrated me. She didn't talk about her family. She deflected questions about her past with graceful subject changes. She had moments, dark moments, where she would disappear into herself, and I would watch the light leave her eyes like someone had flipped a switch. But God, when she was present, when she was there, she burned so brightly it almost hurt to look at her. She laughed at my jokes. She challenged my opinions. She called me out when I was being arrogant or dismissive or emotionally unavailable. She read books beside me in comfortable silence and held my hand during thunderstorms without needing to know why they made me think of Sophia's funeral. She never asked me to forget my first wife. She never competed with a ghost. She simply existed alongside my grief, accepting it as part of who I was, making space for it while also making space for new joy. By month 3, I knew I was in love. By month 5, I knew I wanted to marry her. By month 7, I had a ring. "You're sure?" Daniel asked when I told him my plan. "You've known her 8 months, Elias." "That's not a lot of time." I knew within 8 minutes, I said. The other months were just confirmation. He studied me for a long moment, then smiled. Sophia would have liked her. My throat tightened. I think she would have. I proposed on a rooftop overlooking the city, with fairy lights strung overhead and her favorite song playing from a hidden speaker. She cried. I cried. We held each other as the world spread out beneath us, and I whispered promises against her hair. I'll never let you go. I'll love you until my last breath. You're safe with me. Forever. She said yes. And I believed, I truly, foolishly, desperately believed, that the universe had finally decided to give me back what it had stolen. I should have known better. I should have noticed the signs. The way she sometimes looked at me like she was memorizing my face. The way she held on a little too tightly, a little too desperately. The way she cried in her sleep and refused to talk about it in the morning. The way she flinched whenever someone mentioned the future. I saw these things, but I explained them away. She was haunted, I knew that. She had her own ghosts, her own grief, her own darkness. I didn't push. I didn't pry. I gave her space to heal at her own pace. I never imagined she was hiding a death sentence. The night of the gala fractured into chaos after Lyra's collapse. Paramedics arrived. Guests scattered like roaches when the lights come on. The press, somehow already alerted, swarmed outside the estate, their camera flashes creating a strobe effect through the windows. I moved through it all in a daze. They took her to a private room in the estate while doctors examined her. My family's personal physician, Dr. Chen, no relation to Daniel, emerged 45 minutes later with an expression I recognized. It was the same expression Sophia's doctors had worn. Mr. Hawthorne. I need to speak with you privately. We stepped into my study. I closed the door. The silence that followed was suffocating. Tell me everything. Dr. Chen hesitated. I'm not sure I have the right. She's my fiancée. I have the right. Tell me. He sighed, removing his glasses to pinch the bridge of his nose. Miss Vale has a rare degenerative condition affecting her nervous system. It's called variant Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease. It's aggressive, incurable, and invariably fatal. The words hit me like bullets, each one tearing through tissue and bone. How long? Based on her symptoms and progression? Months. Perhaps less. I gripped the edge of my desk so hard the wood groaned beneath my fingers. That's not possible. She's been fine. She's been healthy. I would have noticed. She's been hiding it. Expertly. The medication she's been taking to manage symptoms, the careful scheduling around her worst episodes, she's gone to extraordinary lengths to conceal her condition. Why? Dr. Chen's expression softened with something that looked almost like admiration. Because she loves you, Mr. Hawthorne. And she knows what you've already lost. I found her in the East Wing guest room, sitting on the edge of the bed with her hands clasped in her lap like a prisoner awaiting sentencing. Her makeup was ruined. Her gown was wrinkled. She looked smaller than I'd ever seen her, fragile in a way that made my chest ache. I closed the door behind me. She didn't look up. When were you going to tell me? Her voice was barely a whisper. I wasn't. The admission should have angered me. It did anger me. But underneath the anger was a devastation so profound I could barely stand. The drug in my drink. What was it? My Dazalam. Combined with a few other compounds. It would have caused temporary anterograde amnesia. You wouldn't have been able to form new memories for several hours. She finally looked up, and the tears on her cheeks caught the lamplight. By the time it wore off, I would have been gone. I was going to disappear, Elias. I was going to leave a letter explaining that I'd fallen out of love, that I'd made a mistake, that I couldn't marry you. You were going to lie. I was going to free you. From what? The words exploded out of me, raw and ragged. From loving you? From the life we were supposed to build? Lyra, I've already lost one woman I loved. I watched Sophia die. I held her hand while she forgot my name. You think making me forget you would have somehow been easier? She flinched. It would have been different. You would have been angry, not heartbroken. You would have hated me instead of grieving me. I could live with your hatred, Elias. I could die with your hatred. But I couldn't. Her voice broke. I couldn't make you watch me die. Not after Sophia. Not after everything you've already survived. The fight drained out of me. I crossed the room in 3 strides and dropped to my knees in front of her, grabbing her hands like a drowning man grabbing a life raft. Lyra. Look at me. She shook her head, tears falling freely now. Look at me. She did. And the devastation in her eyes, the absolute, consuming love wrapped in absolute, consuming despair, shattered whatever remained of my anger. I don't want to be protected from this, I said fiercely. I don't want to be spared. I want you. However much time you have left, months, weeks, days, I want every second of it. You'll watch me die. Then I'll watch you die. And I'll hold your hand while I do. And I'll carry you with me for the rest of my life, just like I carry Sophia. That's not fair to you. Since when is love about fairness? I pressed my forehead to hers, breathing her in. You don't get to make this decision for me, Lyra. You don't get to steal our ending because you think you know what I can handle. I'm scared. The words were barely audible. I'm so scared, Elias. Not of dying. Of hurting you. I pulled back enough to cup her face, wiping her tears with my thumbs. Then stop running. Stay with me. Let me love you through this. For a long moment, she simply looked at me, searching my face for something, though I didn't know what. Then she broke. She collapsed against my chest, sobbing so hard her whole body shook, and I held her. I held her on the guest room floor while the chaos of the ruined gala swirled outside, while the press clamored for scandal, while the world painted my beautiful, terrified fiancé as a monster. I held her, and I promised myself I would never let go. It was a promise I couldn't keep. She was gone by morning. I woke in the guest room bed, we'd fallen asleep tangled together, exhausted from tears and confessions, and the space beside me was cold. For one horrible, disorienting moment, I thought I'd dreamed her. Dreamed all of it. The gala, the maid, the revelation, the raw, bleeding truth of her illness. Then I found the letter on the pillow. Elias. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the drug. I'm sorry for the lies. I'm sorry for making you love me when I knew it could only end in pain. But I'm not sorry for the 8 months. I will never be sorry for those. You gave me something I never thought I'd have, or a home. A person who saw my darkness and didn't look away. A love so complete it made dying feel like a tragedy instead of a relief. I can't let you watch me fade. I know you think you want to. I know you believe you can handle it. But I've seen what this disease does, Elias. I've watched my own mother lose herself to it, her memories, her dignity, her ability to recognize her own daughter's face. I will not put you through that. I'm disappearing. Not to hurt you, but to love you in the only way I have left. I want you to remember me as I was last night, crying, yes, but whole. Myself. Lyra. Please don't look for me. Please move on. Please find someone who can give you the lifetime I couldn't. I love you. I will love you until the very last neuron in my brain fires, and probably even after that. Goodbye, Elias. L. I read the letter 3 times. Then I threw it across the room, grabbed my phone, and started making calls. Daniel. I need you to trace Lyra's credit cards, her phone, anything with a digital footprint. His voice was groggy, it was barely 6 a.m. Elias, what happened? She's gone. She ran. A pause. Maybe she's right. Maybe you should let her. I'm not asking for your opinion. I'm asking for your help. Are you going to give it or not? Another pause. Then, I'll have something for you within the hour. The digital trail went cold immediately. Lyra had planned this. Of course she had. While I'd been falling deeper in love with her, she'd been preparing her exit strategy, withdrawing cash, setting up anonymous accounts, researching places to disappear. She'd cancelled her lease the week before. donated most of her belongings to charity, closed out her bank accounts. The woman I loved had systematically erased herself from existence. But she hadn't erased herself from my memory. And that was her mistake. The next 3 weeks were the worst of my life, worse, in some ways, than even Sophia's illness. Because at least with Sophia, I'd known where she was. I'd been able to hold her hand, kiss her forehead, tell her I loved her even when she couldn't remember who I was. Lyra was just gone. A ghost. A missing person who didn't want to be found. The press had a field day. Billionaire's fiancé exposed as poisoner. Hawthorne engagement ends in scandal. Mystery woman disappears after drugging attempt. They painted her as a gold digger, a con artist, a sociopath who had almost succeeded in destroying one of America's most eligible bachelors. I gave no interviews. I issued no statements. Let them think whatever they wanted. I knew the truth. The truth was that Lyra loved me so much it had become self-destruction. And I was going to find her before that destruction became complete. The first lead came from the maid. Her name was Maria, I learned. Maria Gonzalez. She was 19 years old, undocumented, and terrified of being deported. She'd only come forward at the gala because she thought I was about to die. I found her in the staff quarters, packing her belongings with shaking hands. Please, she said before I could speak. Please don't call immigration. I only said something because I didn't want you to get hurt. I didn't know, I didn't understand. I'm not going to call anyone. I held up my hands to show I meant no harm. Maria, I need your help. You said Lyra helped you once. What did you mean? She stopped packing. Hesitated. Then, slowly, sank onto the bed. 3 months ago, my daughter got sick. Very sick. She needed surgery, but I had no insurance, no money. I was going to lose her. What happened? Miss Vale found out. I don't know how, maybe she heard me crying in the pantry, or maybe someone told her. But she came to me one night and gave me an envelope. What was in it? $40,000 in cash. Maria's eyes filled with tears. She told me to take my daughter to the hospital immediately. She said not to tell anyone. She said she knew what it felt like to lose someone to a disease you couldn't fight, and she wouldn't let it happen to my baby if she could stop it. I closed my eyes, absorbing this new fragment of the woman I loved. Why did you expose her at the gala, then? If she helped you. Because she was going to hurt you. Maria's voice cracked. I heard her on the phone, talking about the drug, talking about making you forget. I didn't understand why. I thought she was evil. I thought she was going to poison you. She was trying to save me. I know that now. Maria wiped her eyes. I know, and I hate myself for what I did. She was the kindest person anyone on staff had ever met. She remembered our names. She asked about our families. She snuck food from galas and brought it to us in the kitchen. I knelt in front of her, bringing us to eye level. Maria, I need to find her. Do you have any idea where she might have gone? Anything she mentioned, any place that was special to her? Maria shook her head slowly. Then stopped. There was one thing. I overheard her on the phone once, talking to someone. A doctor, I think. She mentioned a town, something Harbor. Harbor something. She said it was where her mother was, where she wanted to be at the end. Harbor something. Harbor. I'm sorry. That's all I remember. It wasn't much. But it was more than I'd had 5 minutes ago. I stood. Thank you, Maria. For everything. I'm sorry I ruined your engagement party. I paused at the door. You didn't ruin it. You revealed the truth. And the truth, however painful, is always better than a beautiful lie. There are 47 towns in the continental United States with harbor in their name. I checked them all. I hired private investigators. I called hospitals. I drove through tiny coastal towns and asked strangers if they'd seen a beautiful woman with dark hair and haunted eyes. Nothing. 3 weeks became 5 weeks. 5 weeks became 2 months. I stopped going to the office. I stopped taking calls. I stopped doing anything that wasn't searching for Lyra. My sister staged an intervention after week 7. Elias, this isn't healthy. Emma sat across from me in my home office, surrounded by maps and photographs and notes in my increasingly frantic handwriting. You're destroying yourself. I'm looking for the woman I love. You're obsessing. You're not eating, you're not sleeping, She's dying, Emma. I slammed my hand on the desk, sending papers flying. She's out there somewhere, alone, sick, and dying, and she thinks she's doing me a favor. She thinks she's protecting me by letting herself fade into nothing. Emma's eyes softened. What if she's right? She's not. What if she is, though? What if she knows something you don't? What if this is truly what she wants? I don't care what she wants. I care about what she needs. And she needs to not die alone. Even if it kills you to watch. I met my sister's eyes. Saw the fear in them. The love. I watched Sophia die, I said quietly. It nearly destroyed me. But you know what would have destroyed me completely? Not being there. Letting her face it alone because I was too scared of my own pain. Lyra isn't Sophia. No. She's not. But I love her the same way. Completely. Irrationally. In a way that doesn't care about self-preservation. I turned back to my maps, my notes, my desperate attempt to find a needle in a continental haystack. I'm not giving up, Emma. I can't. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she stood, crossed the room, and hugged me from behind. Then I'll help you look. The breakthrough came 3 weeks later. Daniel had been running continuous searches on Lyra's known aliases and previous addresses. Most of them came up empty, she'd covered her tracks too well. But he found one connection we'd overlooked. Her mother. Helena Vale, Daniel said, sliding a folder across my desk. Died 8 years ago in a long-term care facility. Variant Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, same thing Lyra has. It's hereditary in rare cases. I opened the folder with trembling hands. Where was the facility? Seaglass Harbor. Tiny town on the coast of Oregon. Population 3,000. Seaglass Harbor. Harbor something. I was on a plane within the hour. Oregon in November was grey and cold, the coastline shrouded in mist that seemed to blur the line between ocean and sky. Seaglass Harbor was exactly the kind of forgotten place where someone might go to disappear, a cluster of weathered buildings hugging a rocky shore, populated by fishermen and artists and people escaping lives they no longer wanted. I found the care facility on the outskirts of town, a modest building overlooking the water, surrounded by wind-bent trees. The director, a kind-faced woman named Patricia, recognized Lyra's photo immediately. She was here, Patricia confirmed. Checked in about 6 weeks ago. Said she wanted to spend her remaining time where her mother had spent hers. Was here? She's not anymore. Patricia's expression grew troubled. She left 2 weeks ago. Discharged herself against medical advice. Said there was something she needed to do before the end. Did she say what? Did she say where she was going? No. But she left something. Patricia disappeared into her office and returned with a small box. She asked me to hold on to this. Said if a man named Elias Hawthorne ever came looking for her, I should give it to him. My hand shook as I opened the box. Inside was a photograph, the two of us at the charity auction where we'd met, caught by some anonymous photographer. I was looking at her like she'd hung the moon, and she was looking at me like I was the first safe place she'd ever found. Beneath the photograph was another letter. Elias. If you're reading this, you ignored everything I asked. I should have known you would. You were always too stubborn to let me protect you. I left the facility because there's one more thing I need to do. One more piece of my story I never told you. If you want to understand why I ran, why I lied, why I tried so desperately to make you forget me, you need to go to the Holloway Inn on Pine Street. Ask for room 14. The answers are there. I don't know where I'll be when you find this. I don't know if I'll still be alive. But I need you to understand, Elias. I need you to know the full truth before you decide whether I'm worth finding. L. The Holloway Inn was a Victorian bed and breakfast that had seen better centuries. The proprietor, an elderly man with knowing eyes, handed me the key to room 14 without asking questions. The room was small and sparse, a bed, a dresser, a window overlooking the harbour. But on the bed was a leather journal, worn with age and filled with handwriting I didn't recognize. I sat down and began to read. The journal belonged to Helena Vale, Lyra's mother. I read for hours, lost in the story of a woman I'd never met but who explained everything about the woman I loved. Helena had been diagnosed with VCJD at 35, the same age Lyra was now. She'd watched her own mother die of the same disease, and her grandmother before that. It was a curse passed down through generations, a genetic lottery of the cruelest variety. But what broke me wasn't Helena's illness. It was the entry dated 15 years ago, when Lyra was 20. My daughter refuses to get tested. She says she'd rather not know. She says she wants to live her life without a death sentence hanging over her head. I understand. God help me, I understand. But I've watched her carefully, and I've seen the signs. The moments of confusion she tries to hide. The headaches she pretends don't exist. The way she forgets things and then remembers them and looks terrified. She has it. I know she does. And she knows it too, she's just too afraid to confirm it. But the cruelest part isn't the disease itself. It's what it's taken from her. She had a boyfriend. Thomas. A sweet boy who loved her desperately. But she pushed him away. She sabotaged the relationship until he had no choice but to leave. And when I asked her why, she looked at me with those ancient eyes and said, I won't do to him what this disease did to you and Dad. I won't make someone love me and then make them watch me die. My daughter is 20 years old, and she's already decided she doesn't deserve love. And I don't know how to save her from herself. I kept reading. Helena's entries tracked Lyra's life over the next decade, the relationships she refused to pursue, the walls she built, the way she lived as if she was already dying even before her symptoms began. Then, 8 years ago, Helena's entries became fragmented. Confused. The handwriting deteriorated. She stopped making sense. The last entry was barely legible. Lyra was here today. My beautiful girl. She held my hand and cried. I don't remember why. I don't remember a lot of things anymore. But I remember love. I remember it hurts. I hope she knows love someday. Real love. The kind that's worth the pain. I hope she lets someone in before it's too late. I closed the journal with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. Now I understood. Lyra had spent her entire life running from love because she knew that she carried a death sentence in her genes. She'd watched her mother fade into nothing. She'd held her hand through the end. And she'd decided, at 20 years old, that she would never subject anyone else to that horror. Then she met me. And despite everything, despite her walls, her rules, her carefully constructed isolation, she fell in love. I was the first person she'd let in since Thomas. The first person she'd allowed herself to need. And it terrified her so completely that she'd planned to drug me, disappear, and let me hate her rather than watch me suffer through her decline. But she'd underestimated one thing. She'd underestimated how much I needed her too. I found her 3 days later. It was Patricia at the care facility who finally gave me the lead. Lyra had mentioned, in passing, a lighthouse on the edge of town where she and her mother used to watch sunsets. The lighthouse had been decommissioned years ago, but someone had converted it into a private residence. I drove there as the sun was setting, painting the ocean in shades of gold and rose. The lighthouse stood stark against the sky, a white tower surrounded by wild grass and weathered rocks. I climbed the stairs to the keeper's cottage, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. The door was unlocked. I pushed it open. And there she was. She was sitting by the window, wrapped in a blanket, watching the sunset with an expression of profound peace. She'd lost weight, too much weight. Her cheekbones were sharp, her skin pale, her beautiful hair thinner than I remembered. But her eyes. When she turned and saw me, her eyes were still the same. Haunted and luminous and so full of love it took my breath away. You found me, she whispered. I'll always find you. I crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled her into my arms. She felt fragile, bird-boned and trembling, but she was here. Alive. Real. I read your mother's journal, I said against her hair. I understand now. I understand why you ran. She pulled back, tears streaming down her face. Then you know why I couldn't stay. I watched her die, Elias. I watched her forget my father, forget me, forget everything that made her her. I couldn't put you through that. That wasn't your choice to make. It was the only gift I could give you. A clean break instead of a slow destruction. I cupped her face, forcing her to meet my eyes. Lyra. Listen to me. The months we had together, they weren't a gift you gave me that I'm supposed to be grateful for. They weren't charity. They were us. Our story. And you don't get to rewrite the ending without me. There's no happy ending here. Maybe not. But I'd rather have a devastating ending with you than a comfortable lifetime without you. She closed her eyes, more tears escaping. You don't know what you're asking for. I know exactly what I'm asking for. I'm asking for every moment you have left. Good days and bad days. Clarity and confusion. I'm asking to hold your hand at the end, like I held Sophia's, because that's what love is. It's not just the beautiful parts. It's everything. I don't deserve that kind of love. You do. You deserve it more than anyone I've ever met. She looked at me for a long moment, really looked, as if she was seeing me for the first time. Then she broke. She collapsed against my chest, sobbing, and I held her the way I'd been desperate to hold her for months. We sank to the floor together, tangled and broken and somehow more whole than we'd ever been. I tried to forget you, she whispered between sobs. After I left, I took the drug myself. The same one I put in your drink. I thought if I could just erase you, it wouldn't hurt so much. I froze. What? The midazolam. I took a dose. A heavy dose. I wanted to forget everything, meeting you, falling for you, every moment I'd been stupid enough to think I could have a normal life. Horror crept through me. Lyra, that's incredibly dangerous. You could have? I know. I didn't care. I wanted the pain to stop. She looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. But it didn't work. The drug wore off, and I remembered everything. Every laugh, every kiss, every time you looked at me like I was the most precious thing in your world. You are. I tried to erase you, Elias, and I couldn't. You're written on my soul. Even when my brain starts to fail me, even when I can't remember my own name, I think I'll still remember you. I kissed her forehead, her cheeks, the salt tracks of her tears. Then stop running. Stay with me. Let me be here for whatever comes next. It won't be pretty. I don't care about pretty. I care about us. She was quiet for a long moment, her breath warm against my chest. Then, finally, okay. Okay? Okay. I'll stay. I'll stop running. She pulled back to look at me, and despite the tears, despite the shadows under her eyes, she smiled. But I need you to promise me something. Anything. When it gets bad, when I'm not me anymore, I need you to let go. Don't hold on to a ghost. Don't spend years grieving a body that looks like me but isn't. Promise me you'll live, Elias. Promise me you'll find joy again after I'm gone. My throat tightened. That's not a fair promise to ask for. Neither is asking you to watch me die. But we don't get fair. We get this. She took my hand and pressed it to her chest, over her heart. We get however much time is left. And then we get goodbye. I pulled her close, breathing her in, committing everything about this moment to memory. I can't promise to stop grieving you. I can't promise to move on quickly or gracefully. But I can promise to live. Eventually. In my own time. That's all I ask. We had for more months. For months of living in that lighthouse by the sea, watching sunsets and sunrises and everything in between. For months of good days and bad days, of laughter and tears, of conversations that lasted hours and comfortable silences that said more than words ever could. I brought in specialists, the best in the world. I flew in experimental treatments from Europe. I threw more money at her disease than most countries spend on healthcare in a year. None of it worked. The disease progressed exactly as the doctors said it would. Slowly at first, then with increasing speed. She started forgetting things, where she'd put her keys, what she'd had for breakfast, the name of the book she'd been reading. Then she started forgetting bigger things. There was a day, 3 months in, when she looked at me with confusion in her eyes. "I know you," she said slowly. "I know I love you. But I can't remember your name." I held her hands and smiled through my breaking heart. "I'm Elias." "Your fiancé." "Elias." She repeated it like a prayer. "Elias. I don't want to forget that." "You won't. I'll remind you every time." And I did. Every morning, I introduced myself. Every evening, I told her our story, how we met, how we fell in love, how we were spending our final chapter together in a lighthouse by the sea. Some days she remembered. Some days she didn't. All days, she loved me. That was the thing about her disease, it took her memories, her cognitive function, her ability to recognize faces and places and times. But it couldn't take the emotion. She looked at me with love even when she couldn't remember my name. She reached for my hand even when she couldn't remember why she trusted me. The heart, I learned, remembers what the brain forgets. The end came on a morning in late spring. She'd been declining rapidly for weeks, sleeping more, speaking less, drifting in and out of consciousness like a boat untethered from its moorings. I'd moved a hospital bed into the lighthouse's main room so she could see the ocean even when she couldn't get up. That morning, she was lucid. I'd almost forgotten what lucidity looked like on her. But when I brought in her breakfast tray, she looked at me with clear, focused eyes and said, "Elias." My hands trembled. "You remember?" "I remember everything today." "I don't know why." She smiled, that familiar, heartbreaking smile. "Maybe it's a gift." "One last good day." I set down the tray and climbed onto the bed beside her, gathering her frail body into my arms. "How do you feel?" "Tired." "Peaceful." She pressed her face into my chest, breathing deeply. "Thank you for staying. You didn't really give me a choice." "I tried to." "You did. You tried very hard." I kissed the top of her head. "I've never been good at doing what I'm told." Her laugh was weak but genuine. "No. You haven't." We lay there for hours, watching the sunlight move across the walls, talking about nothing and everything. She told me stories from her childhood, memories I'd never heard, treasures she'd been hoarding. I told her about my plans for the Hawthorne Foundation, the scholarships I was establishing in her name, the wing of the children's hospital I was building. "You're making me a legacy," she murmured. "You're making yourself a legacy. I'm just the messenger." As the sun began to set, painting the room in shades of gold and rose, her breathing started to change. It became slower. Shallower. The spaces between breaths stretched longer and longer. I held her tighter, fighting the urge to beg her to stay. "Elias? I'm here. I need you to know something." She looked up at me, and her eyes, those beautiful, haunted eyes, were wet with tears. "Meeting you was the best thing that ever happened to me. I spent my whole life running from love, and you caught me anyway. You let me catch you. Eventually." She smiled. "I'm sorry it took me so long. I'm sorry we didn't have more time." "Time doesn't matter." Her hand found mine and squeezed weakly. "What matters is how we spend it. And I spent my best time with you." The sun sank below the horizon, plunging the room into twilight. "Lyra. I love you." "I know." Her eyes drifted closed. "I love you too. Always. Even when I forget." Her breathing slowed. I held her as the stars came out, one by one. I held her as the lighthouse beam swept across the water, endless and eternal. I held her as she slipped away, peaceful and loved and finally safe. Epilogue, the after. They say grief is the price we pay for love. They're wrong. Grief is the proof of love. It's the echo that remains when the song is over. It's the egg that reminds us we were lucky enough to have something worth losing. Lyra taught me that. She taught me that running from pain doesn't protect us, it just delays the inevitable. She taught me that loving someone, truly loving them, means staying even when it hurts. She taught me that the most courageous thing we can do is let ourselves be loved by someone who knows they'll lose us. It's been a year since she died. I still live in the lighthouse. I've expanded the property, turned part of it into a retreat for families dealing with terminal illness. A place where they can come to be together, to watch sunsets, to create memories that will last longer than any disease. I call it Lyra's Light. Her name is carved into the foundation, and her story is told in the brochure we give to every arriving family. Not the tabloid version, the true version. The story of a woman who loved so fiercely she nearly destroyed herself trying to protect the people she cared about. The maid, Maria, works here now. Her daughter is healthy, thriving, attending school on a scholarship the Hawthorne Foundation provides. Maria tells Lyra's story to the families who visit, and she cries every time. She saved my daughter, Maria says. And she saved Mr. Hawthorne too. Even when she was running away, she was saving him. I don't know if that's true. Some days, I feel saved. Other days, I feel shattered. Most days, I feel both. I visit her grave every Sunday. It overlooks the ocean, set on a cliff not far from the lighthouse. The headstone is simple, just her name, her dates, and a quote she loved. Love doesn't die. It just changes form. I talk to her when I visit. I tell her about the foundation, about the families we've helped, about the lives that are better because of her legacy. I tell her about the small things, a beautiful sunset, a perfect cup of coffee, a song that made me think of her. And sometimes, when the wind is right and the waves are crashing below, I swear I hear her answer. I'm here. I never left. I couldn't forget you, remember? Last week, I found something in the pocket of her old jacket. It was a note, scribbled on a scrap of paper, dated 3 days before she died. I don't know when she wrote it or how she managed it in her condition. But the handwriting, though shaky, was unmistakably hers. My love. By the time you find this, I'll be gone. Not gone, I don't believe in that. Just somewhere else. Somewhere I can watch over you without the limitations of a failing body. I need you to know that I meant what I said at the gala. The drug, the disappearance, all of it, I truly believed I was saving you. I understand now that I was wrong. Not because leaving wasn't the loving choice, but because I underestimated you. I underestimated what you were willing to carry. You carried me. Through the worst of it. Through the forgetting and the fear and the long nights when I didn't recognize your face. You carried me like I was precious, even when I was broken. I don't have words big enough to thank you for that. So instead, I'll leave you with a promise. Every sunset you see, I'll be there. Every wave that crashes on the shore, I'll be there. Every time you feel a warmth in your chest that you can't explain, that's me, loving you from wherever I am. Don't spend too long grieving, Elias. We promised each other, remember? You promised to live. So live. Live for both of us. I love you. I love you. I love you. Eternally yours. Lyra. I keep the note in my wallet now. I read it on the hard days, when grief feels like drowning and moving forward feels impossible. I read it on the good days too, when I catch myself smiling and feel guilty for being happy without her. She told me to live. So I'm trying. I'm trying to live with the grief and the love and the bittersweet knowledge that the best thing that ever happened to me was also the most temporary. But here's what I've learned in the year since Lyra died. Nothing is temporary. The love we shared, the moments we stole, the sunsets we watched from that lighthouse by the sea, they exist forever in some dimension I can't see but can definitely feel. They're woven into the fabric of who I am. They've changed me, shaped me, made me someone capable of feeling this deeply. Lyra tried to make me forget her. She failed. And every day, I'm grateful for that failure. Because remembering her, the pain of it, the beauty of it, the complicated, messy, overwhelming truth of it, is what keeps me tethered to the world. She said love doesn't die. She was right. The end. If you've made it this far, thank you. Thank you for reading about Elias and Lyra. Thank you for caring about their story. Please make sure to subscribe for more.